So, judgment, ethics, and morality. A lot of times when countries or policymakers are making decisions with regard to international relations or foreign policy, they're using their judgment. And their judgment's going to be based on a number of factors. And one of them, one of the most important influences in judgment is not just power, resources, self-interest. So if you're a realist, you certainly believe self-interest is that. But you also have ethics and morality. And when you assess causes of things or look at what caused certain events, ethics and morality are also an important part of examining that. So first, we look at some different issues there. One is relativism. And so relativism is a way of examining people's values. And relativists argue that I can't argue inherently that one value or one set of value is better or more moral than or less moral than another value. They are all culturally accepted within the context of their own cultures. So relativists will argue from a standpoint of study that I can't. So this also becomes tricky because I'd say people in the international relations community have a bit of a different acting definition of this than, say, cultural anthropologists. So relativism is something that anthropologists use to examine different cultures, and it is a way to most very scientifically study them. They have to make an agreement that when they study these, they're not going to approach them from a standpoint of moral superiority. So they're going to examine all such customs in that culture as relative. So they're going to say this is what's normal in this culture. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to personally accept those, right? It doesn't mean that, in fact, you find those to be acceptable. So, for example, could be something simple like a marriage custom. So, in some cultures, it's a marriage custom for a bride to have a dowry attached to her, so that parents of the bride pay a certain amount of money and wealth to the groom and his family for the agreeing to marry his partner. Now, in America, like in the United States or in Canada, we may not see dowries as culturally acceptable. In fact, it almost right? Our view of it may be, wow, that's really sexist. But an anthropologist studying that culture is going to have to, if it's going to be done scientifically, is going to have to examine it within the context of that culture. So you can't make a moral judgment on that. Now, that's not saying that you can't make judgments about certain practices. You can. And I think this is the disconnect here between, say, the anthropologist and the international relations specialist. Okay? So the anthropologist is going to be doing that. And that's a research ethos. It doesn't mean that the anthropologist personally finds this to be acceptable or palatable practice. It's a research ethic. It's a research norm. In international relations, the United States or Canada may view a certain practice going on in the world as completely wrong, dangerous, and choose to act on that assumption. It may label it that way. Now, we could see why it's labeled that way, what that practice really is. Are we representing it properly? Are we misrepresenting it? So, for example, if the United States and Canada, as well as other members of NATO, were to identify, say, we find a country in which we find that massive human rights abuses, including torture, is common for even the smallest of crimes, and that mass executions are going on. And this is a culture that seems to say, oh, well, mass executions are okay, they're acceptable, whatever. We may choose as NATO or the United Nations may choose to go in and stop that. This brings us to our next point, which is called universalism, which also means that we think that there are a belief that there are a certain set of common values, or a certain set of values that are pretty common among different cultures and around the world, and a certain set of standards that are pretty common, and therefore a sort of international community accepts them. I would say my previous example would be one. Genocide is not culturally acceptable in our view, so we would go out and try to stop it, hopefully. So I've revealed, by the way, try to keep my own views hidden, but I've revealed one, that yes, I think that the United Nations should stop genocides, and that the United States and Canada and Great Britain and France and all the other countries within the UN should work at stamping out things like genocide. But so universalists will agree that there's a certain norm, a certain set of normal values, what they consider normal, and that the different cultures need to adhere to them. Different countries must adhere to them. And that to move outside of that norm is something that brings a country outside of the tolerance or respect of the international community. There's also the belief in pragmatism. And pragmatists try to argue from the standpoint that they don't, practically, is this solving a problem? Is this causing a problem? Am I setting a precedent by getting involved in a conflict or not? That's what pragmatists are. That's what pragmatists are concerned about. What they ask is this practical? That's what the term pragmatism really translates to, is practical. So, is this going to help me secure my borders? Is that a wise policy to choose? Is this going to help me secure the stability of my country? Is this going to win resources? What is the practical value of getting involved in a particular crisis? Does it serve my self-interest? Do I benefit from this? So these are all practical questions. Is an event going on that I'm being asked to intervene in causing great international instability and therefore threatening the stability of the world system I inhabit? Then that's a practical problem that I need to solve. You also have moral choices. So you have to choose, and it depends. So moral choice is a difficult one. Your book uses, I think, a classic but good example. You're a soldier in a war zone, and one night one of your fellow soldiers is shot. The next morning, when you wake up and realize your comrade's been shot, your commanding officer goes out and asks which villager did it. And then declares, since no one came forward, you were going to select 3 people at random and shoot them in retaliation. And so depending on which one of these views you have, relativist, universalist, pragmatist, right, you're going to make different choices. So if you're a relativist, you would say, fine, okay, if they can do that, I can kill 3 in retaliation. There's no judgment there. If I'm a universalist, I still object. I say no. So I would say, no, we can't shoot innocent people for committing a crime they didn't commit. We don't know if they're guilty or if they're innocent. There needs to be a finding of fact. There needs to be a trial. These are certain set standards that apply to everyone, not just Americans in the United States or Canadians in Canada or Britons in Great Britain, right? It doesn't matter where we are. I would say that there's a universal to making sure we find out whether there's a finding of fact, a finding of guilt or innocence before we mete out a punishment. So we're not just simply engaging in bloody retribution. And who knows what happens if we go back and do a whole analyze the whole process there, and find out that this soldier wasn't killed by a villager at all. That in fact maybe he got into a fight with another soldier who shot him, and it looks as if a villager did. See, so they're correlated. We don't know one caused the other, right? So we have to process trace it. Moral choices. Pragmatists might take the option where the commanding officer says, okay, you shoot one, we'll let the other two go. A pragmatist might say, well, there's no other way out here. I shoot one person, one for one. At least I didn't shoot the other two. That would have been excessive. So I think this is an interesting example of this case of judgment, but these are different ways ethics and morality may be applied, and we see these also applied in international relations. Now, judgment's another interesting thing, which also means that a lot of times decisions in negotiations, decisions in international relations are the result of a judgment call. And ethics and morality influence that judgment call. And sometimes someone will make a decision based on a feeling. And that is probably something that will keep us up awake at night, worried about who's got that feeling and what that feeling is. But it's important in understanding as we analyze international relations that sometimes we have major events being weighed by one individual or a few individuals, and they're making a judgment call because they don't have perfect information, which is another important part of this process. Perfect information means you have all of the facts in front of you to piece something together. And perfect information is very rare, especially in international relations. Perfect information might as well be like a unicorn. Okay, it's just not around. So, understanding how to prioritize some facts over others, understanding how to process trace causes, how to analyze decisions, using ethics and morality as a way of seeing why people make decisions they make, how they exercise their judgment. These are all important elements to this process. And since we don't have perfect information sometimes, we have to also figure that judgment calls are going to be made, especially when you don't have some information. You have to make a judgment call about your assessment of the other side or a situation. You can use lots of evidence to help inform you, but sometimes you still have people who make judgment calls. So it's important to recognize.